2020 has been a year of real change. We San Diegans have not only been learning about history, we've been living it. The COVID-19 pandemic has changed the way we all work. Here at the San Diego History Center, we're continuing to collect our region's history, preserving it for future generations, hearing your history through history happening now.
We are as committed as ever to tell the diverse stories of San Diego, past, present, and future. We do this through connection, and we do this through community. We have strengthened our valued connection with the first peoples of this region, the Kumeyaay. We've completed more than 30 detailed oral histories with Kumeyaay leaders, preserving these stories for future generations to learn from and appreciate.
Our education programs have gone online, enhancing students' distance learning experience. We're not just preserving San Diego history, but revealing it to our youth. 2020 may be our most challenging year ever, but times of great challenge present opportunities for great innovation. Because now, more than ever, it's critical for us to have an understanding of our community's past, to know where we're headed in the future.
In 2021, look forward to accessing the History Center's vast collection as we build a digital archive for the future. We're putting the power in your hands to learn and engage with history by reaching into the archive, online, on demand.
The San Diego History Center is committed to creating inclusive, informative, and powerful exhibitions and programs, creating space for community discussion, growth, and healing, accessible both in person and online.
In order to do all of this, to continue to preserve, promote, and reveal the fascinating history of the San Diego region, we rely on our community for support. Please give today.
Well, good evening and welcome to our 2020 presentation and version of our member appreciation. And I really just want to start off by introducing myself. My name is Sheila Thomas. I've had the pleasure of meeting many of you in person and over the phone. And those of you who I have not met, I really look forward to meeting you when it's safe to do so. I want to say thank you to all of our members and all of our donors for your committed and your unwavering support for the San Diego History Center that allows us to continue preserving and revealing history and bringing the history of our region to our community. Now I would like to introduce our fearless leader, our CEO and President, Bill Lawrence.
Thank you, Sheila, and thank you all for joining us this evening. We've got so many friends in our virtual room. This is just really nice. I'm coming to you tonight from my office at the History Center, the Legler Benbow Executive Office. And Giving Tuesday is really the time to harness the power of doing good. And we want to thank you, our members, our volunteers, our donors, and our supporters for allowing us to continue our mission to preserve, reveal, and promote the history of the San Diego region. Now, we know and we understand that you have choices, and there are a lot of very, very worthy causes that are competing for your support, but we're very, very grateful to you all for selecting to support the San Diego History Center. And we hope you'll continue to do so and help spread the word. But today is not just Giving Tuesday, it's also a very important part in the nonprofit world. It's the start of our year-end appeal, where your dollars given to us are tax deductible. I'll say that again, your donation can be tax deductible. So we're pleased to announce that for our annual year-end appeal, the San Diego History Center Board of Trustees is making possible a $50,000 challenge match. So for every dollar you contribute, it's being matched. Now, our goal is $100,000 before the end of the year. Please help us get there. And to be honest, we need your support now more than ever before. Sheila, would you please let everybody know how they can help and donate? Sheila, are you there? Sheila, unmute your mic, please.
All right, there we go.
There we go. Forgive us. We've rehearsed this once, but there's always some technical glitch in all of this.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Sheila.
So there's 3 different ways to give. We have introduced a new way of giving, and you can take your cell phone and text SD History to 44321, and a link will pop up and you can click there, and there's a way to give there. Of course, you can visit our website, sandiegohistory.org, or you can call me, you can email me. I would love to chat with you. I've listed my cell phone number here and my email address, 619-206-1073. And just reach out, and I'm happy to answer any questions, and I would love to talk to each and every one of you.
Okay, thank you, Sheila. Roger, we're going to come to you now because you really are the star of the program. And what better person to talk about San Diego history is our guest speaker who is joining us. Roger Showley is an accomplished journalist, retired from the San Diego Union Tribune. He's a historian, he's an author, and also president of Committee of 100 here in Balboa Park. But the thing that I appreciate most about Roger is that he is both a member and a friend of the San Diego History Center. He's also the author of, and will shed insight into, San Diego Memories, the 3rd installment. It's right here. This is my best Vanna White impersonation. The 3rd installment in a partnership between the San Diego Union Tribune and the San Diego History Center. And just as a member benefit for all of you who are members, and if you're not, you need to become, the book is currently on sale at a discounted price through this Friday. And we'll tell you a little bit more about that. And Roger, why don't we move over to you and help us on this journey.
Well, thank you very much, Bill and Sheila, and it's great to be here with everybody from the San Diego History Center, friends of mine, VIPs galore, all taking a moment on December 1st to think about San Diego History Center and San Diego history in general. Let me share the screen here and get rolling on the...
That sounds good, Roger. While you're doing that, I will do a housekeeping note. Okay. For everyone, you are able to ask questions as we go along. Please use the Q&A function in the Zoom toolbar, and we'll be happy and we'll be taking those. Roger, how are you doing about your screen?
Okay, share? Here we go. Let's see. Okay, is that on?
No, it is not. So
let's see.
Maybe what we're going to do is
here. Let's try this now. Here.
There we go.
Okay, good. All right. Well, let me go back to the cover. Just as an introduction to this project, when I left the Union Tribune in 2018, Jeff Light, the editor, said on the last day I was there, said, "Oh, I have a project for you," and he told me about these history books that a company named Pediment has been producing around the country, and they said, "We want to do one on San Diego." So in 2018, we came out with volume 1 that took San Diego up to 1940. The second one last year was 1940 to 60, and this one, 1960s and 70s, is number 3. And what's special about this is that we take pictures from the San Diego Union Tribune collection and the History Center and other sources. And what I try to do is give a little bit of history of all the pictures that we find, drawing on the newspaper articles that have appeared in the paper all these years. And what makes it easy to do is because the newspaper is digitized and I can simply look up online, find the article that goes with the picture, and then in some cases I'm able to go forward in time to see what happened to that place or that person or that event, and bring things up to date. So we begin in the history in a big picture way of looking at the timeline of the period in question. This is 1960 to 1979. some of the major events of that period many of you lived through, from the Kennedy assassination, the Nixon resignation, the PSA plane crash in San Diego, and some good highlights like San Diego's 200th birthday and the landing on the moon, 1969, both in the same year. But and many of these pictures you see were by the UT photographers seen here. And we give credit to them for their eye and Johnny on the spot. Notice that there's no women in this picture. Things have changed a lot in the last 50 years, both in who's writing the newspaper and who we write about. So that is a reflection of changing in society and trying to be more inclusive and diverse in all ways. Of course, we start out sometimes in history with the great men of history theory. In the US case, of course, we have presidents, all who have come to San Diego in this period, starting with Dwight Eisenhower, then President Kennedy, then President Johnson, President Nixon with the President of Mexico, President John Ford, President Carter, 1979. A special element of this period, I think, that we included as a chapter, the first chapter in this book is called Protest and Activism, or Activism. We've gone through a lot of that in 2020, but if you go back 60 years ago to 1960, this was as active a time as we've ever had in San Diego history, and in a way, it's we are visiting the same issues back now that we did back then. Well, the period started out with some rather quaint issues in San Diego about drag racers. The police and residents didn't like the teenagers drag racing in the streets of San Diego and El Cajon. And in 1960, there was a crackdown on the drag racers, and 41 men, 63 juveniles were arrested during a 4-hour caravan of motorized protesters wanting their own drag strip in San Diego. And lo and behold, the powers that be listened to those complaints, and a few weeks later, the city of San Diego moved forward to set up its own drag strip where they could drag their cars safely all days and nights. More seriously, of course, was the civil rights movement. It saw its reflection in San Diego at the time. This is in 1960, the NAACP organized demonstrations around the country against hiring practices and sales practices. And here's a gentleman who's named Elliot Richardson in front of the Woolworth store on Fifth Avenue. We marched protesting the indignity and humility of Jim Crow. In 1964, Martin Luther King Jr. came to San Diego on a 10-hour whirlwind trip where he spoke to students at Cal Western, now Point Loma Nazarene, and San Diego State. And he said in his speech that segregation was a cancer on the body politic, which must be removed before our nation can be healthy again. And another quote was, "I'm convinced deep in my heart that by using nonviolence, we can turn racial discord into a symphony of brotherhood." In 1964 also, there was an initiative headed for the ballot to overturn the Rumford Act, which was passed in Sacramento to include fair housing practices around the state. So there was a convention of the California Real Estate Association at El Cortez in January 1964. They opposed the Fair Housing Act and sponsored that initiative, which the voters approved, but then the courts later overturned it. This is an interesting event in 1965. A group called Teens for Morality protested a Go-Go Girls nightclub on Alvarado Road in Mission Valley. and they hung a green plastic sheet over a scantily clad dancer studio. That leader in the picture is Tamsin Feeney, 16, who said that no one would pay attention to teenagers, but maybe this stunt would draw attention. But the club owner vowed to keep the $2,300 sign in place, and he said, "You want people to notice it." So in this case, I said, I wonder what happened to this go-go dance club, and discovered that it is now occupied by a billboard sign company of all things.
Roger, how difficult is it to find out what's become of what was?
Well, in this case, I found out what the address was for that go-go place, and then I looked up online to see what it was today, and it turned out it was this billboard company.
Oh, very good.
So, and as a little note about the San Diego History Center, it has a vast collection of address books, city directories, that you can go and look up addresses and see what companies or individuals have occupied a particular address over time. So I've used that many times, which is a valuable resource. Well, in 1967, some of you remember the Summer of Love in San Francisco, and San Diego had its own love-in that year, April 9th, 1967, where about 200 so-called hippies and teeny boppers, as the newspaper called them, gathered at a section of Balboa Park and, just wanted to be happy and love each other. As one person said, it's just an attempt to spread love. Well, I was a student at UC San Diego in the 1960s, and I remember this event on October 4th, 1969, when the Revelle College campus plaza was filled with about 1,500 students who came to listen to Angela Davis. You can see here in the middle right ground, a woman in a print dress or blouse. And she was speaking the very day that the UC Board of Regents was voting to withdraw credit for her UCLA class called Recurring Philosophical Themes in Black Literature. Another woman of leadership at the time was Carol Rowell, 21. She founded the Women's Liberation Movement at San Diego State. And here she's looking over messages on a construction fence in December of '69. And she said, "There are a lot of omissions and distortions in the curriculum. Women are referred to only in footnotes and anecdotes." In 1970, a major event took place when San Diego City college students led a protest beneath the San Diego Coronado Bridge. It happened on Earth Day, April 22nd, 1970, actually. They were opposing a CHP substation that was proposed under the bridge. After a 12-day occupation, the city agreed to secure the site for what has become Chicano Park, and that was declared a historic site in 2017. Who remembers the swimsuit optional ordinance that the city council passed in 1977? And Pete Wilson was the mayor at the time. He's with us today, I see. But the idea was not too popular with the general public, and the city council repealed it. And a few days later, members of the Nude Beaches Committee were cited in Black's Beach north of La Jolla Shores. And here's Pete Wilson himself. He was San Diego's longest serving mayor from 1973 to '82. And at the time, he was a breath of fresh air among San Diegans who were objecting to unbridled growth and environmental degradation. And Pete, I would say he's the original Mayor Pete, left behind appreciation of growth management, a ban on billboards, and downtown redevelopment. Well, San Diego, like many cities, but it also has its quirky, iconic images and objects. So I thought we'd include a few of those in this book. One is called Hot Curl. He was a statue that was made by an illustrator named Mike Dorner, who fashioned it at the studio of Donald Hort, one of San Diego's famous sculptors. It debuted in April 1963. It was a bit rickety and the police removed it. and then it was replaced in July of '63. And this is where these girls and the boys are standing around admiring a good old hot curl. But it was vandalized and removed itself. The third version of this reappeared in 1991 and now stands in the California Surf Museum in Oceanside. Hot curl appeared in comic books and the 1964 movie Muscle Beach Party. Another icon of San Diego was Don Diego, played from 1948 until 1947 until 1948 by Tommy Hernandez. He was at the official ambassador of the Del Mar Fair and had, before becoming this iconic figure, starred in a touring show of the Cisco Kid. How about Jack in the Box? Jack will speak to you. This was an innovative way to serve people in drive-ins. The developer, the inventor of Jack in the Box restaurants was Robert Peterson, who started out with the Oscars chain. Some of you might be old enough to remember that it was served by car hops in those days. But instead of dropping the cost of service or the waitresses, they used an intercom system connected to the Jack's heads, and Jack will speak to you and take your order. And the History Center actually has one of the Jack heads in its collection, right? Right, Bill?
That is correct, Roger. And it's actually an earlier model than even this one. It appears to have been a prototype. That will be something that you'll be able to see when we, in a couple years, hopefully we'll have our new core exhibit of San Diego history that we're working on.
The next iconic figure is the KGB chicken. That KGB did not refer to the Russian Secret Service. This was the KGB radio station, 1974, and a 20-year-old journalism major at San Diego State named Ted Giannoulis donned that uniform, that costume, and made public appearances on behalf of the radio station, and then started appearing at sports events around San Diego. And the New York Times called it perhaps the most influential mascot in sports history. And Ted Giannoulis still makes appearances in his chicken outfit today.
That's a great jacket that Ray Kroc is wearing.
Yeah, and this is.
Oh, Roger, I have to quickly just tell a little story about Sheila. Sheila had never heard of the KGB chicken. I think previously. Is that correct, Sheila?
Yes, that's correct. I grew up and going to Padre games in the 80s, and I only knew the chicken as the San Diego chicken. I thought it was only a Padre thing. So it was a fun fact and learning moment for me to know that the KGB chicken was before the San Diego chicken.
And Shirley, remind everybody how they can ask questions as we're going along.
Sure.
Yes, go ahead. And if anyone has a question, we've been answering questions in the Q&A, or feel free to put them in the chat as well. Okay.
Shamu, of course, is another major iconic figure in San Diego history. She was a 14-foot, 2,000-pound orca that debuted at SeaWorld in 1964 after being captured at Puget Sound. She performed until 1971 and died 4 months later. But she lives on in all that marketing of SeaWorld all over the country. And we can't forget Dr. Seuss. Theodore Seuss Geisel was not a doctor, but he was a beloved figure in history of popular literature. He moved to La Jolla in the 1940s and made his mark with The Cat in the Hat, and dozens of other zany creatures, all in the service of teaching children how to read. And this is a nod to Comic-Con, another San Diego invention. It debuted in 1970 at the U.S. Grand Hotel with 300 attendees. And today, when there's not a pandemic, the San Diego Convention Center sees about 130,000 comic fans, film fans, popular culture followers and proponents every summer. And here we see two kids, two 12-year-olds at the 1976 show. On the left is Freddie Lou, and right, Marshall Beck, reading a Howard the Duck comic book. And it was made in one of the worst movies in American film history. But here they are enjoying the comic. Now we turn to something that's not quite as joyful, and that's Tragedies and Disasters in San Diego in 1960 to 1979. 1970 was a terrible year in many respects. The Old Globe Theater burned down. In 1963, San Diego mourned the death of President Kennedy. And at the memorial service seen here at the Westgate Park, site of today's Fashion Valley Shopping Center, a speaker said, the Union Tribune said in an interview, or editorial, it was a strike out of a night of the impossible. It was blinding with its suddenness. The period of mourning for President John Fitzgerald Kennedy will be with us for a long time. And 5 years later, Robert Kennedy, his brother, was running for president, appeared at San Diego in the concourse here, and also the day before his assassination in Los Angeles on the day of the California primary. In 1970, San Diego witnessed the Laguna Fire that consumed 175,000 acres in the backcountry, destroyed 382 homes, killed 16 people, and was the state's third largest fire at the time. 2 weeks before the Old Globe Theater was destroyed, the Electric Building in Balboa Park was also destroyed by arson. The main victim was the Air and Space Museum that recovered and moved into rebuild its whole entire collection in what is now the Ford Building in the Palisades area of Balboa Park. And the beneficiary of the destruction of the building was the History Center that occupies the Casa de Balboa today.
Yes, I would say, Roger, there can be good things that come out of tragedy.
Right. And probably the worst event of that decade, the 70s, was the PSA crash also in 1978. 144 people died in the plane, 2 in the Cessna that collided with the Southwest Airlines Flight 182, and 7 on the ground. And a personal note, I was in the Union Tribune newsroom at that moment when this happened, and the mother of one of the San Diego Union secretaries was on the phone with our secretary, and all of a sudden the phone went dead. It turned out she was one of the victims of her home that was destroyed in North Park that day.
Hey, Roger, Nancy Carroll Carter has asked a couple questions going back to the Old Globe fire. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure that you'll know the answer, but the 2 questions are, was the Old Globe fire also found to be arson, and were there any arrests?
Yeah, I think police determined there was arson, but they never found the perpetrator of either fire. There was the same person or someone else. So that's one of those mysteries of San Diego history.
Roger, you were at the UT at that time. I had just come out of my journalism class at San Diego State University, and saw the smoke, which was, I think, for many San Diegans, that was probably one of the more challenging times that we've had to deal with.
Yeah, and it reignited the whole question of Lindbergh Field, whether it's safe to keep that airport there. Went through many years of, it's been debated for decades over whether Lindbergh should be moved. And they did improve the safety precautions at the airport, but it's still there today. The final disaster or tragedy of the 1970s was the school shooting at Cleveland Elementary School in San Carlos in January 1979. 16-year-old Brenda Spencer aimed a rifle from her home at the school and killed the principal and head custodian and injured 8 students and a police officer. She remains in custody at the California Institution for Women in Corona. And her chilling explanation of why she did this when she was arrested was, "I don't like Mondays."
Which was later made into a song by the Boomtown Rats. So, Roger, before we move on to arts and culture, we have a question regarding the PSA crash. And you may know this, was the crash the thing that ultimately led to the end of PSA as an airline in San Diego?
I don't think that was, no, I don't think so. That was a matter of airline company consolidations. I don't think it had to do anything to do with PSA's unfortunate accident that day.
Thank you.
And Roger, there's one more question, and this is relating back to the drag strip, I believe, in El Cajon. Where was the drag strip when it got approved?
I think I don't think I actually found that out. I mean, they talked about creating it, but I don't know if it ever happened. But at least there were stories saying that the city officials in San Diego were going to look into that. Like so many things, great intentions lead to no action. But in this case, I don't know.
And while you have done wonderful research and you have your wealth of knowledge from your career at the Union Tribune, you really can't know everything. And that's part of the fun of doing research, I think, and that's one of the reasons why the History Center archive is so incredible, and we're working to build that into a digital form so we can make it much more accessible. It's why the California Room, the public library is important, why the archives at UCSD and San Diego State are incredibly important.
Well, I just as a side note to that observation, I've often thought that San Diegans and Californians in general are pretty ignorant of local history, local state history. The only time they ever learn about it is in the 3rd and 4th grade, basically, in local education or schools. And there's a bill that Shirley Weber was going to introduce to improve the knowledge of California's diverse population and history of different people and groups in California. And I thought, gee, this is a great opportunity to promote the general interest in California history itself. So perhaps that will come of this effort in Sacramento. Well, we'll move on to arts and culture. One of the standouts in San Diego, I think, is things like the North Park Toyland Parade that started in 1947. This picture shows in 1963. There were 34 floats, 24 marching bands, and a December temperature of 77 degrees. Sort of like what it felt like yesterday. This is a picture of the Beatles. The rock band came to San Diego in August 1964 and performed at the Balboa Stadium before 16,000. And one of the reporters at the press conference asked, "How much longer do you think you'll last?" And George Harrison replied, "Oh, about 30 years." Well, they're still obviously a popular group today. Elvis was in San Diego and performed 5 times between 1956 and 1976. Bob Marley and the Wailers and their reggae sound were heard at the Civic Theater in 1976. Ella Fitzgerald performed at the San Diego Symphony at the San Diego State Open Air Theater in 1977. And the Bee Gees, the disco sound, made a stop in San Diego in 1979 on their 41 city tour, Spirits Having Flown. And San Diego's been a film backdrop for more than a century. And in 1977, there was a special sequence filmed at the Children's Pool in La Jolla for The Stuntman that starred Peter O'Toole. Now, one of the goals of these book series is to shine a light on people who aren't normally thought of as newsmakers, but they're very much part of the San Diego scene as anybody else. And that was means looking for diversity and inclusion of pictures. And that was one of the goals we had in looking for pictures in the UT collection and the History Center collection of some 3 million images. So we did our best to find as many people of different backgrounds as we possibly could and give them their moment in the historical sun. Now, women have been a very important part of San Diego history, as many of you know. So I've found a few of them that we definitely wanted to include in this book. This is the first woman mayor of a San Diego city, Thelma Hollingsworth. She was a pharmacist by trade and was succeeded the mayor of National City who had resigned. This is the Nobel Prize Physics professor at UC San Diego. She won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1963, the first woman to do so since Marie Curie in 1903. The San Diego Union's headline identified her as, quote, a San Diego woman. So sometimes the headline writers aren't as insightful as you'd hope, but it's 1963 for you. This is Mildred McDonald, along with other women, working on computer wiring plans and wiring at the National Cash Register's Century 200 project in 1968. These are 2 lab assistants at the Salk Institute. I tried my best to find out who these women were. In many cases, we do have the identification of people that are pictured in this book, and I did my best to sort out who they were. And in some cases, when they're only identified by their husband's name, I was able to use the city directory to track down their first name. But unfortunately, even calling the Salk Institute, they couldn't identify who these women were, but perhaps they will see this book and say, that's me on the left. This is Patricia Donaire, who was leading a cooking demonstration, Mexican cooking demonstration at the Museum of Us, former Museum of Man, in 1967. And this is a group of ladies at the Maria Clara de Filipinas sorority in 1969. And I wondered, what is this society and why is it called that? And I was able to determine it was a name of a protagonist in an 1887 novel by a Filipino nationalist. So you learn something every day in doing these little research projects for simple little captions. And this is the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority debutante ball in 1969 at the Scottish Rite Center in Mission Valley. They were selected for scholastic achievement and community service. I did find the photo assignment listing all of the ladies who were in the ball, but they were all listed in alphabetical order, and I couldn't figure out who was who. So we included their names in the book because I think whenever we know who they are in the picture, we should tell the readers who they are. So I'm sorry, but we couldn't figure out who was who in the rows.
And Roger, that's a really good point. If you happen to recognize somebody in the process of looking through the book, be in touch with us about that. So we were able to continually go back to the archive and help, flesh out some of this information.
And I think it's one good point, Bill, we should make about the photo collection at the San Diego History Center. It's a wonderful resource, but in many cases the people are in the places, the dates are not identified. So if you ever give pictures, the pictures you have in your own households, go back and identify in the back of the picture, or if it's a digital picture, note it on the information that goes with it as who this is, when this was taken, and what we're looking at.
Yeah, that's very helpful 100 years from now. So
exactly. And if you think you have 3 million images today, given how many pictures people take on their phones, you get 100 million pictures later. So
it's a lot.
It'll be a lot.
It's definitely a different time.
Yes, not to mention all the videos people take. Okay, here's another important picture of active women in San Diego history. This is the Lawyers Club that founders in 1972. The 3 women from left are Judith McConnell, Lynn Shank, and Sharon Voorhees. And they founded the organization after bucking the old boys network in the San Diego Bar Association. And it still exists today, actually. Finally, we have, another professor. This is Helen Ranney, first woman to hold the position of chair of the medicine department at the UC San Diego School of Medicine in 1973. And her story is that she initially faced barriers to continuing her medical education at Columbia University, but policies were changed during World War II that allowed for her admission to the College of Physicians and Surgeons. San Diego had its first women firefighters in 1974. And we had Anovia Taylor, who was a star track athlete at Madison High School in 1976. And then she continued her winning streak at San Diego State. And we have a couple of important political leaders of San Diego to note today. First on the left is Leon Williams, the first Black San Diego City Council member, who was appointed in 1969 and seen here at the City College redevelopment project downtown. And he went on to become a member of the Board of Supervisors and many other boards and agencies. And he replaced Tom Hom, who was elected to the State Assembly and had been the first Chinese American member of the San Diego City Council. He's also alive. Both Leon and Tom wrote very compelling memoirs recently, so I recommend them to all of you to read.
Leon is very much a treasure, as is Tom as well.
Yes. Notice there's a picture of John F. Kennedy with a black banner over him above Tom's picture, because he was sworn in just right after a couple of weeks after the JFK assassination. Well, let's see. Unique to San Diego, of course, is our military history. And so we wanted to include a few pictures of our military in this period. This is one I thought was kind of fun. It shows the Everly brothers in 1961, who reported for duty as Marines at the MCRD station. And on graduation day, this is Phil on the left and Don on the right. Well, on graduation day, Don married Venetia Stevenson at the Naval Training Center Chapel, and they immediately flew off to Miami Beach for their honeymoon. And Phil joined them, and they both appeared in their dress uniforms on the Ed Sullivan Show that weekend. Then they returned to San Diego and were stationed at Camp Paladin. Here were about 1,000 Marines returning from South Vietnam in August 1965 aboard the J.C. Breckenridge. They were among the first U.S. combat troops to go ashore at Da Nang earlier that year. Memorial Day is always an important day for remembering our troops, and this is a typical tribute at the Rosecrans National Cemetery in May 1965. Well, when Saigon fell in 1975, Camp Pendleton was set up to house about 18,500 refugees in Operation New Arrivals. Many have made their home in San Diego ever since and formed the core of San Diego's vibrant Vietnamese community. I wonder if these two kids are still around.
Could very well be.
And this is a curious picture. You think, well, what does a surfer doing facing a bunch of Marines on the beaches of Coronado? Well, this is really a training exercise, and the gentleman there is a Navy SEAL named Bob Meadow, who's acting as a lifeguard in 1978. It's one of several winning photos that we include in this book by UT photographers. This one by Rick McCarthy. So that's another point I wanted to make as often as I could in the book, was to give those photographers credit for pictures if we know who took each individual shot. Now we move on to a fun thing, sports in San Diego. Of course, everybody loves sports. This photo shows the Chargers beating the Raiders at their first encounter at the Balboa Stadium that was enlarged by September 1961 as a condition for bringing the Chargers from LA to San Diego. I wonder how many of people watching today or joining us today remember attending games at Balboa Stadium. Well, 6 years later, they moved from Balboa Park to Mission Valley to the San Diego Stadium. The Chargers lost their first game in their new home, 38-17 to the Detroit Lions. But the star was the innovative multi-purpose stadium that won National Design Awards. And here we are, 53 years later, about to demolish this landmark in San Diego.
Roger, I think today the auction that you can buy some of the seats from the stadium has started, and I know San Diego State University is also selling off some of the signage from there as well.
Mm-hmm.
A little San Diego History Center fact, we actually have the architectural model for San Diego Stadium in our collection. It's quite large, it's currently in storage, and we're thinking about ways to bring it out to be able to put it on display because it's a very timely thing.
Well, as you know, the San Diego State is buying the land from City of San Diego to build a West Campus there over the next few years, and they're planning to build their own Aztec Stadium, much smaller than the San Diego Stadium, northwest of this site. I did ask, why don't you keep the building? And they said, well, unfortunately, San Diego Stadium occupies the most important section of the property, and we need it for all the development we're planning to put there. And I wonder if any of us will live to regret that they didn't keep the stadium when San Diego wants to get a new NFL team someday, and they'll say, oh, that's too small. You need a brand new stadium for NFL football in the year 2050 or something. Well, anyway, it was a multi-purpose stadium because the Padres and the Chargers were going to use it. So the Padres minor league team played it in downtown at the old stadium there, Lane Field, moved to San Diego Stadium in 1969. Here they are at their debut game as a major league team. We have many other sports in San Diego. Just wanted to include a couple of them. This is Mickey Wright, San Diego native, who here is shown winning her 4th U.S. Women's Open Golf Championship in 1964. And we couldn't forget Tony Gwynn, shown in a basketball uniform at San Diego State in 1978. But of course, he found fame as a champion batter when he joined the Padres 4 years later. And we looked around and we said, we can't forget skateboard, the sport of skateboarding. And this photo is really great. It shows David Fiedler practicing his talents on a makeshift ramp in Normal Heights in 1978. But the neighbors complained and the police closed it down. Now we turn to commerce and industry. The picture we used at the beginning of this chapter I wanted to use because it sort of symbolizes San Diego's advancement into high-tech technology research and development. We started out in that field with the Convair's Atlas missile that was built by General Dynamics Convair in the 1950s and 60s, and one of those missiles was on display in Balboa Park in 1960 during National Engineers Week. This is a hot cell lab at General Atomics in 1960, and I thought, what is a hot cell lab? And it really has to do with the radioactive materials they were using in analyzing and researching. And that facility started decontamination and decommissioning in 1995. San Diego was, of course, a tourist and visitors mecca, and in 1962, Vacation Village opened in Mission Bay, and it was designed by San Francisco architect Eldridge Spencer. The landscape, the San Diego landscape architect was Roland Hoyt, and he's known for having designed right out the landscape for the Presidio Park, which is where the History Center first home was, Mission Bay Park, and the Salk Institute. Let's see. This is Mission Valley Center that opened in 1961. now Westfield Shopping Center. It was a furious battle in the period when plans called for Mission Valley to be a more of a natural green space between down to the old neighborhood south of Interstate 8 and the new suburbs to the north. And you wonder what is going to happen to this shopping center, because many shopping centers are being converted to multi-purposes, and we'll see if that takes place in San Diego. Bowling was big in San Diego, like the rest of the country, and here is the Bolero in Lemon Grove in 1961. I said, I wonder what happened to that Bolero. Turned out it became, about 20 years later, it became a county social services agency's office. San Diego is also a shipbuilding center because of its bay, and here we see NASCO finishing the Caleton ferry in 1967 for the Washington State Ferries operation. In 1965, San Onofre Power Plant was being constructed, and here you can see the reactor container being put into place in 1965. And as you all know, the power plant is being decommissioned itself. It'll take many years to be completed. Well, this is Max Luft. He was the German master chef at the Westgate Theater Hotel that opened in 1970 in downtown San Diego. Luxurious place that still is a popular place to visit today. Finally, I wouldn't want to forget my own company, the Union Tribune, that abandoned its downtown location for modern office building and state-of-the-art printing plant in Mission Valley in 1973, the year before I joined the company. Then toward the end of my career, we moved back downtown in 2016, and we print the newspaper in, of all places, Los Angeles. And of course, in the 60s and 70s, tuna canneries were still going strong. This one is the Sun Harbor Industries in 1976. But because of environmental rules and competition from other countries, local canneries basically closed down, and San Diego is now the home of the corporations, but not the cannery people. Move on to education. This is in Allied Gardens. I love this picture of the girls playing Foursquare.
Roger, just to give you a time check, we've got about 5 minutes or so.
Okay, good.
For our 6:30 time that we were aiming for.
All right.
So.
Well, in education, this is a language lab. If you remember learning German or Spanish or whatever in a language lab, San Diego High School introduced that in 1961. Here were professors at the UCSD School of Science and Engineering in 1960, had just opened. It became Revelle College and for undergraduates in 1964. 1970, the UCSD Geisel Library was nearing completion. Jonas Salk was opening his Salk Institute. Louis Kahn was the architect of that remarkable building that's on every architect's must-see list around the world. And I like this picture. This shows the principal at Lincoln High School, Ernest Hartzog, who received a set of essays from students following a student walkout and teacher strike in 1969. I wanted to include a few pictures of crime fighting. This shows a 4-hour shootout at a downtown pawn shop in 1965. The pawn shop manager, Louis Richard, died, and the gunman, Robert Anderson, was convicted twice, but paroled in 1976 with an exemplary work record. Another casualty that day was Robert Crandall, editor of the San Diego Independent, who was hit in the crossfire. Our final shot, and this is a sniper shooting investigation in Rose Canyon in 1966, another award-winning photo. What happened here was that there were 3 incidents in a few days, and the detectives never could figure out who the instigator, the perpetrator of these shots was. Final few photos I want to share with you show the San Diego Coronado Bridge. This kid's waving to a vessel down below. This is the construction of the Crosstown Freeway, Interstate 5, in 1962. The only downside of that is it cut off the connection between downtown and Balboa Park that many people now think can be reconnected by covering over part of the freeway. And here's the bridge itself in 1968. It had been thought of and proposed back in the 1920s. It finally came to pass in 1969 over the strenuous objections by people in Coronado. And of course, with the opening of the bridge, the ferry service that had been dated back to the 1880s went out of business.
Those were nickel snatchers, is that correct, Roger?
Exactly. So that's a sample of our pictures that were featured in this book. I hope you all enjoyed it. It was fun working on. It's a huge amount of effort to write little captions because it's nice to show the story behind the picture. And it kills me that picture is more pictures than words, but I know you love pictures, so I hope you love this book.
Roger, this has been really a great presentation, and we have a few questions that we will take now. One comes to us from Janet Klauber, a longtime member, Historical Society member, stalwart San Diegan. And I'm going to summarize here, Janet, so bear with me. Please speak to the great landmarks that weren't. So all of the big ideas that perhaps were planned for, talked about, but never seemed to come to fruition. Janet remembers one from Mrs. Henry Clark, who worked very hard to get the Civic Center built in Southeast Balboa Park around where Balboa Hospital is, but that never happened.
Well, actually, they were thinking of turning the federal building into an auditorium, and it was even built that way with a raked floor in 1935. But now that never took place, and that's now going to be the Comic-Con Museum.
I would also say, Roger, we have plans in our architectural collection that shows putting the main public library in the Ford building.
Yeah, well, it was in one of the other buildings between libraries in the 1950s. So
yes,
finally we have a decent, giant library downtown.
Also, we have, it's great that this is allowing some crowdsourcing. Trustee Bonnie Fletcher responded regarding the drag strip, but and her post is in the chat section that everybody can access. But the drag race site was just off Bradley Avenue and is now a large vacant lot. Okay,
good. Thank you very much.
Tom Sayer, also a trustee, asks, what about the Showley Brothers Candy Factory?
Well, I thought you'd never ask. That was built in 1924, and when the Padres built the Petco Park, it was in the way of the Park of the Park, so the Padres moved the building of a block to the east and restored it at a cost of like $11 million, which is amazing, and it's now the home of Tuna Company.
We have another question coming from Linda Durr, and she wants to know, did the flight pattern change after the crash? Do we know that?
I
don't think so, no.
I don't think
so. There's only so many ways you can get to Lindbergh from the east. So.
Yes. Sheila, let's remind everybody about where they can get the book.
Okay, so we do have the book on sale at a special price. It's $29.95 plus tax and shipping, so we can get that to you. Books will be going out this week. We have them in our hands, and we can get those to you for $36 delivered. The cover price on that is $49.95, and we're extending the special price out through the end of the week. The special price was supposed to end last week, but we've decided to go ahead and extend that out. So if any of you have already ordered a book, thank you so much. Those will be going out this week. And anyone else that orders a book, you can do that on our website at sandiegohistory.org. Or again, you can give us a call. You can give me a call. You can send me an email. And I'm going to just share this screen really quick that has the contact information on it again. So if making any donations, a couple questions came across in the private chat and wanting to know if memberships counted as part of that matching grant challenge. And the answer is no. We do have, and anybody that joined us late, I wanted to go back and let you know that we do have, thank you to our Board of Trustees, we have a $50,000 matching gift challenge for the month of December only. So that's any donations that are made to our 2020 annual fund, which can be made by texting SD History to 44321. A little link will pop right back up in your text box, and you can click the link and give there via credit card. You can also visit our website, sandiegohistory.org. Or you can call or email me. I would love to chat with you. That's my cell phone number listed there and my email address. So if any extra questions come in after the end of this program, please feel free to send them my way, and I can either get them to Bill or to Roger if they are anything addressing the program.
One thing Carl Larson is asking, who can use the archive? The photo, particularly the photo archive, right? Right now, no one other than San Diego History Center staff. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the requirements for social distancing, the archive is closed to the public. However, that means doesn't mean that everything has stopped. We have remote research requests that you can get to. The best way to look at the photo archive right now is we have approximately 30,000 images that are available online, and they are through what we call the photo store. So if you go to sandiegohistory.org and then under research or under buy, you can look at the images that are in the photo store. And those are usually, while we have millions of images, those 30,000 really represent the best. And one of the things that we're doing right now while we're close to the public that's internally that we find really exciting is that we're making a major investment in some new software that is going to allow you all to do more research online in your own home. So that is something that please stay tuned. We will be revealing more about that shortly after the first of the year.
We do have another question, and that is pertaining to the first and second books. And yes, we still do have a few of those left. I think we have a handful of the second book, and we also have a few of the first book. So if you want any of those copies, please do actually get in touch with me directly, and I can get those to you. And we do have a couple more questions that we'll get to, but I wanted to share with you as well that we have coming this Friday, we will have a lot of the items from our San Diego History store available for sale out on the Prado, and all of our members will get 30% off any of those purchases from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. So bring a mask, and we will also have a special little gift for you if you come visit us.
Also, if you wish, take part in a Taste of December 9th. It's going to be great.
And let me give a moment about the future. The publisher of the series says the closer you get to the present, the less people are interested in the present day history. So I'm thinking the final fourth volume might be 1980 to 2020. Unfortunately, the History Center does not have too many pictures from that last current contemporary history. So all of you some of you said, oh, I have a picture of this, I have a picture of that, of General Dynamics. My father was the photographer. So don't throw the pictures away. Call Bill Lawrence at the History Center and say, I have my grandmother's pictures, I have my parents' pictures, what do I do with them? So always call them before you throw anything away. It's not like you have an unlimited room for stuff, but pictures, documents, memoirs, all sorts of things, that even scrapbooks, yes, are collected at the History Center. And for the future historians, they need your materials today. So I'll think of that.
Yes, also one of the things that you can do is go, while we're closed right now, is go online to the San Diego History Center, sandiegohistory.org, and use the Share Your Story. If you haven't done that yet, we would really ask that you do. And you can upload pictures, you can write your story and make it part of our collection and part of our archive. And also, if you have grandchildren who are really good at using one of these, they can do an oral history with you and upload it to us. So we're also going to be, when the pandemic is over, we're going to be going out into community and doing community scanning events. So one of the things that we as a historical society need to do is continually augment, because history doesn't stop. It's continually moving forward. So I think at this point, Roger, thank you so much. We really greatly appreciate your help with this tonight. It's a phenomenal book. I highly recommend it to everyone. It's a great series as well. It really is something that you can pass to future generations. And thank you so much tonight. Stay with us over this next week and throughout the rest of this year. Help support the San Diego History Center, and thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you, Sheila. Good job.
Thank you very much, and I hope to hear from everyone soon. Happy
you.
holidays.